I think what you're trying to ask is why am I so insistent upon giving out to them that blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture. I think that's what you're asking. I have no choice over it. In the first place, to me, we are the most beautiful creatures in the whole world, black people. I mean, and I mean that in every sense, outside and inside. And to me, we have a culture that is surpassed by no other civilization, but we don't know anything about it. So again, I think I've said this before in this same interview, I think at some time before, my job is to somehow make them curious enough or persuade them by hook or crook to get more aware of themselves and where they came from and what they are into and what is already there, and just to bring it out. This is what compels me to compel them, and I will do it by whatever means necessary.
Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Monday, June the 1st, 2026. On this edition of the Politicrat, last voting advice for those voters in California who have not yet voted in the primary. The day before the California primary and 5 other state primaries take place, I'll be talking about the importance of voting strategically in California, particularly around the California gubernatorial primary. I'll also be talking about Tom Steyer, one of the leading candidates I am definitely voting for, and in fact did vote for, and why I think you should vote for him given this jungle primary. Plus, advice that you should never follow from Professor Eddie Glaude. I'll be playing you something that you really need to hear, that you should never, ever do. All of that and more coming up next. And dear listener, welcome to this brand new edition of the Politicrat. Yours truly, Omar Moore here, back with you in the building on this first day of June. That's right, June 1, 2026. That's right, we are now into the summer months. Officially, of course, summer doesn't begin until, 3 weeks from now or so. But this is the summer month. This is the start of the summer months here. So June, July, August, really, as we get into stretch summer. All of the summertime is here now, and it's great to have you aboard, dear listener. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I do hope that you are well. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. The final weekend in May just ended yesterday on the last day of the month of May, I should say. And I do hope, again, that you are well and that you're enjoying your Monday, the first day of June. I want to talk today about a couple of things, one of them being the elections, and this season that we are in for primaries is a very important one. I want to definitely emphasize that. Talk a little bit about California as well, as we are now a day away from the California primary, which of course includes the gubernatorial race, which has been getting a lot of attention across the country. And I'll also be talking about one or two other things, including I'll be playing you once again, as I played you a few weeks ago, the comments of one professor who gave some advice that I certainly would disagree with and I'd strongly advise you not to follow. That I'll be taking care of as well a little bit later on, and one or two other things as well. So let's get right to it, shall we? I want to start with what we are going to be getting here today, Monday, in New York City, because in New York today, there is actually a debate between 2 candidates for Manhattan's 10th congressional district. And that district, I think it takes parts of Brooklyn and Queens, and I think parts of Manhattan as well. But the 2 Democrats running for the 10th congressional district in New York City would be Dan Goldman, the representative who currently is the incumbent for that seat, and his challenger, the former city comptroller, Brad Lander. Remember, Brad Lander was arrested last year by ICE agents in an immigration court in New York City. You remember that arrest got nationwide attention, as Brad Lander was there representing a few people who had been in immigration court. And he was violently pushed to the ground and thrown up against a wall and handcuffed, if you remember that from last year. And Brad Lander, will be taking on, as I said, Dan Goldman for that 10th congressional district seat. Their debate is tonight, on New York One, and it's also on YouTube as well. For those of you who do not get New York One, you can also watch the debate starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. You can watch that debate tonight live on New York One's YouTube station. So please go to YouTube and search for the New York One YouTube channel. And at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, that debate will be scheduled to begin between Brad Lander, the challenger, and the incumbent Dan Goldman for that New York 10th congressional district seat. So that's an important debate in New York. So definitely, if you are in New York right now, if you are a New Yorker and you are registered to vote in New York, then please make sure, and especially if you are in that particular part of New York, the 10th congressional district, if you are in that 10th congressional district, let me be more specific, because it's not all of New York, of course, that can vote. It's only the 10th congressional district in New York who can vote in that particular race. And if you are in the 10th congressional district in New York City, make sure that you tune in tonight for that debate at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the New York One YouTube channel, or of course on New York One itself if you have access to it. So I wanted to start with that, dear listener. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the primaries that take place tomorrow here in the United States. There are 6 states, count them, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, who will have primaries tomorrow on June the 2nd, Tuesday, June 2nd, June 2. And those 6 states are as follows: California, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. So you've got a couple of new states in there, New Jersey and New Mexico, and you have a South state in there, that's South Dakota, along with Montana, Iowa, and California. Now, keep in mind, dear listener, for those of you here in California, there are a number of races you need to be aware of. Some congressional district primaries, District 1, 7, 11, 13, 14, 22, 26, 40, and 48. Now, District 11 is the San Francisco race, and that's between 4 candidates, 3 major candidates and a 4th candidate. The 4 candidates are Soykrat Chakrabarti, who is a multimillionaire who used to work in the tech industry and is a progressive, and was the campaign manager for AOC back in 2018. He has been aggressively pushing ads, pledging to be the anti-AIPAC candidate. He doesn't take AIPAC money. He also talks about how it's important to not only denounce Gaza, but make sure that he has an impact on resolutions in Congress against what Israel is doing, or Bibi Netanyahu's government is doing in Gaza. And so he is very much an anti-Israel government candidate. And he also has talked about reducing the impact of billionaires in the country. And he's a very much progressive candidate. And so he's running. He doesn't have the political experience, but he certainly is someone who says that he is very serious about trying to change things in Washington, D.C. And then you have Connie Chan, who is a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Connie Chan is, I'd say she leans more progressive. I'd say she leans more toward the progressive side. She is someone who's accomplished a lot in her few years as a member of the Board of Supervisors. That would be the equivalent, the Board of Supervisors here in San Francisco, of the City Council, say in New York, for example. And so only there are many more members of the City Council than there are, of course, here in San Francisco as Board of Supervisors. Of course, San Francisco is far, far smaller than New York City is. So Connie Chan has been on the board, I think, for a few years, and she has experience there. So she is running. She's also endorsed, by the way, by Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, who endorsed her a couple of weeks ago. So this, again, is for the congressional seat, District 11 here in San Francisco, specifically for the right to go to D.C. for Congress. That's the primary. There's two other people that you need to be aware of. Scott Wiener, who is currently a state senator here in California. Scott Wiener, who lives here in San Francisco and has been very visible over the years, is, I'd say, much more of a moderate to conservative Democrat. And Scott Wiener certainly has ruffled some feathers, including a project for high rises for corporates, for people who are very rich, well off here, that is going to affect and destroy the skyline, part of the skyline vision of some residents of San Francisco, which, again, this has been something that's been very much been something that a lot of residents locally in one part of San Francisco have definitely been very vocal against. So Scott Wiener, who has the approval of a lot of more conservative, more moderate types of Democrats, is somebody who never has met a bill he doesn't want to pass that seems to go against the interest of everyday people. He's someone, I think, who seems to shill a lot more for these corporations, and it's a lot of the corporations and billionaires that are supporting Scott Wiener. Now, Scott Wiener has had a fairly lengthy career in politics here in San Francisco and in California at large. And so he is going to be running as well for this seat. And he definitely has ruffled a lot of feathers and I think made a lot of enemies and doesn't seem to really care that he has. But the bottom line is that he is running. And then finally, Marie Hurabiel, who is an anti-trans person. She absolutely is a bigot, and would not vote for her if she was the only person on the ballot. I'd do a write-in. I honestly would. Marie Hurabiel, Hurabiel, I actually walked past her once on the streets here in San Francisco, and I was not impressed. She just has an energy that's so very negative. All those other people I've met. One of the, not met, but I have seen close up one or two of those candidates I just mentioned, and their energy and their aura comes off very positively. Connie Chan, I've seen her in person. She just seems like a very emanating pleasantry. Sometimes when you walk up to people or walk past people or in the same room or the same space as someone else, and sometimes those people that you're in the same space with give off a really negative aura and very strong aura. And it's not a strong as in good or positive. It's strong as in very negative and, ooh, my God, what's that emanating from you? That kind of thing. And you know what I'm talking about, dear listener. Well, Connie Chan doesn't give that off. She's the complete opposite. Scott Wiener, as much, and I don't personally, I just don't think he's going to be the solution or the idea. I would not back him. In fact, I didn't vote for him. Full disclosure, I did vote for Connie Chan. His aura, Scott Wiener's aura, seems pleasant and gentle and, not, this kind of feeling that you get that just hits your heart and your soul when you have people that you're around who have that kind of, really awkward and horrible energy. But Marie Hurabiel, however you pronounce her last name, I just spelled her last name for you. Her energy is just, it's just so awful. So look, the bottom line is that I would not vote. Well, I told you who I voted for. I am not voting. I would not recommend anybody vote for her. Plus, you see these videos of her where she insults gay people, insults transgender people. I don't know how many weeks ago or what it was. I think there was what we call the Bay to Breakers, BAY, Bay to Breakers race, which is a marathon race, but it's not like the San Francisco marathon. It's the more fun-loving, less serious marathon where people are dressed up in all manner of costumes here. And it happened a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago here in San Francisco. And so people every May run through the streets, some of them naked. I don't think they allow that anymore here in San Francisco, running naked, although you can go to parts of San Francisco and see people walking naked. If you really want to do that, I don't think you do. But the bottom line is that there's the Beta Breakers race, and people dress up as hot dogs, as casino machines, as bananas, as you name it, right? So she was at the Beta Breakers race 2 or 3 weeks ago, and this is Marie Hurabil I'm talking about, and oh my gosh, man, she was seen on camera, and this was not some kind of AI video. She had this t-shirt on that was very much anti-trans and anti-gay, if I remember it correctly. And she was haranguing people, haranguing them, shouting out all these anti-trans slurs and anti-gay slurs, or, things of that nature. It was really vile. And so Marie Hurabil is not somebody that you should be voting for if you are in San Francisco in the 11th district. San Francisco, the District 11 covers everywhere in San Francisco. It's just, please, I would call her Marie Horrible. That's how I'd pronounce her last name, Marie Horrible. And her energy is just, and then you find that she says, I'm the true moderate in the race. I'm the only true moderate in this race. And I think, you're the only true bigot in the race. That's really who you are. But anyway, I've spent enough time on that 11th Congressional District race. That's going to be part of the equation tomorrow. As I said, of course, the big talking point obviously has been and will be the California gubernatorial primary. And of course, we know that term limits prevent Governor Gavin Newsom from seeking a third term as governor of the state of California. And so in this state, we have a primary to see who is going to succeed him this November. Now, as you know, and I think I've told you many times, and I know I have, and many others have as well, we have a jungle primary here in California for the governor's race, which means that the top 2 vote getters, regardless of political party, will advance to the November general election for governor here. So the odds are, very strong odds, that you're going to have either 2 Democrats or 1 Democrat and 1 Republican. And I'll get into a bit more of the specifics of that a little bit later. So the top 6 or 7 candidates who are on the ballot, including, of course, the leading or the so-called frontrunner at the moment is Javier Becerra, who looks very much as if he's going to be one of the final 2 candidates. The Democrat Javier Becerra, who you know a little bit about. He used to, of course, be Joe Biden's Health and Human Services Secretary. He was at one point the California Attorney General, and he was also a congressman in the U.S. Congress as well. So I'll get into the more specific aspects a little bit around the governor's race in California. But that is going to be the big headline tomorrow evening, of course, when we find out who the top 2 are. And then, of course, lieutenant governor, that's another race, not nearly as spotlighted, but it is a race. It's actually a separate office from the governor, the lieutenant governor of the state. And so that is also up for the primary there. And then the attorney general race as well, and the secretary of state, and the Los Angeles mayor. And that's the other race here in California that's getting a lot of nationwide news media attention. And there are 3 candidates there, one of whom is the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, who continues to get criticism from the white corporate news media and some people in Los Angeles who just don't like her, or certainly if they don't like the fact that she's a black woman, certainly don't like what happened around the fires in Altadena and Pacific Palisades about, 17, 18 months ago now. And the bottom line is that, come on, how on earth could Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, have foreseen that there were fires? She was on the African continent before the fires even happened. And when she got word of the fires, she waited for the very next flight out of the African continent, specifically the African continent, particularly specifically the country of Ghana, if I can say that properly. The flight was another day or so, because the flights leave every other day, I think, in Ghana, something like that. And so she had to wait a day and a half for the flight. There was no other way to completely get involved in this. And so, this is just one of those things. So what happened was that she got on the flight finally when it arrived to take her back to California, and then she started to get involved, of course, on the ground there in California, in LA. And she was only someone who, and she couldn't have done anything to stop the fires. I mean, and plus it wasn't, she doesn't even have jurisdiction over Altadena. And you've still got some people in parts of Altadena who are upset with her. And it's just crazy, because as mayor of Los Angeles, Altadena is not even part of the city of Los Angeles proper. It's just not. It's part of Greater Los Angeles and Los Angeles County, but it's not a part of the city of Los Angeles. And yet you've got some people haranguing Mayor Bass about Altadena, which isn't even her jurisdiction. Go and talk to the Altadena mayor. Altadena is a predominantly black and historically black town in Los Angeles County, and so in the north of the city of Los Angeles. And so that was known as the Eaton, E-A-T-O-N, Eaton fire, which was in Altadena. So you've got people getting upset with Mayor Bass in Los Angeles who aren't even from Los Angeles. So a lot of this that you see with the attacks on Mayor Bass are coming from outside the city of Los Angeles, and more so outside the state. You've got dark money being pumped into that race. Thank you very much indeed, Citizens United. Thank you, thank you. Jesus Christ. And then you've got this wild card of a fool named Spencer Pratt, who is a reality TV star, I think, who's running, I think, as a conservative or as a Republican, I think, in the race, and or whatever. But this guy has no experience. He doesn't know anything from anything, and he's a white man. So I guess for a lot of white voters who might be voting, that might be enough experience for them. And then you've got a woman who is from, she's from the United States. She has an Indian background. And she's running as well. So, and she says that she's the progressive, running to the left of Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. So we will see how that all shakes out. There have been one or two debates. One debate that I think got canceled, and another debate that did take place. But that's been the other debate that has been the other race in California that's garnered so much attention over the last few months. And so keep an eye out for that tomorrow in the primary. And so we'll keep an eye for those. Now in Iowa, there of course are races in the Senate to watch, the House to watch, the governor's race, Attorney General and Secretary of State. And in Montana, Senate and House races there. In New Jersey, the same thing. In New Mexico, you've got Senate, House, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, and Secretary of State. And finally, in South Dakota, you've also got the Senate, the House, and the governor's race. And so we'll be watching for all of those. We'll be, of course, getting on top of all of that for you here on the Politicrat. And yeah, these are really important primaries. All of these primaries are. And please vote. If you have not yet voted and you are registered to vote in one of the states that I have just ran through here, make sure you do that. Please do. Make sure you're registered to vote. And if you haven't voted yet, please do. In a number of those states, there is early voting. California, today is the last day, I think, to early vote in the state of California. So please do that, folks, here in California. If you have not yet voted, and there are some people who have not yet voted in the state. And the thing to remember here, folks, is that there is, again, one more day to do early voting, which is today, the first day of the new month. And bottom line is that after today, tomorrow will be the last day to vote, because June 2nd is the very last day to vote in the California primary and all these primaries. It's election day tomorrow. If you're somebody who likes to vote on the day of the election, and there are many people who do, there are many older voters who like to do this. There are many older voters of any background, but particularly older voters who are black, many of whom like to go to the polls on the day of. And I want to talk a bit about that for a moment here, because whichever state you vote in, whether it's your state that comes up tomorrow or the state that you live in coming up in the future or in November, if you are someone who likes to vote on the day of the election, keep in mind, and you know this by now, if you're in a particular state where this happens, that there could be long lines. And this is why it's so important to have a plan to vote. And if you are going to go to the polls tomorrow in a state, or as I said, at any point where your state has either primaries or midterms or any general election or anything, keep in mind that you could be online for, especially if you're a black person voting, because the racism in this place is through the roof and always has been. You could be voting, and you could be waiting on a line to vote for 7, 8, 9 hours or more. Ask yourself what your plan to vote is going to be, and make sure that you have a plan to vote, and discuss that plan with relatives who may be voting either in your state or voting in the state they live in. Of course, you can only vote in the state you live in, obviously, and that you're registered in. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have relatives or senior citizens, for example, who have primaries and they may not be in the same state as you, you need to have a conversation with them about an advance plan to vote. What is your plan to vote? Are you going to vote on the day of the election, or are you going to vote early if your state allows you to vote early? There are some states that don't allow you to vote early. Many states allow you to vote early, but there are a few who don't. And remember, dear listener, you have to really look at your county board of elections, because that county or that city applies directly to where you live, and so they would have the information that's most accurate for you. And, because some counties do things differently, even in the same state. So, you've got to recognize where you live and do research on that. That won't take you more than a minute or two to do. And make sure you discuss with your relatives and your significant other and with, other family members. Discuss a plan to vote. Work out a plan in advance so that you're not going in cold on the day of, and it's like, oh my God, I'm going to be standing here for 8, 9 hours. Should I? And that always happens. And this is how it is with many people here in the United States. Last minute on a whole lot of things. Last minute this, last minute that. You didn't prepare, you didn't plan. Maybe you're too busy, you didn't do this, you just thought, oh, I'll deal with it later. And then all of a sudden it deals with you. All of a sudden it deals with you, and you're waiting on a line, particularly if you're black in this country, that stretches for days, basically. And you're in a line for 7, 9, 10 hours or more. And if you don't want to be waiting on a line that long, I really strongly advise you, dear listener, to vote early if your state allows it, if your county allows it. This is why it's so important. By voting early, you avoid all of this mess, all this BS that happens on election day. Look what happened back in March of this year in Texas, in the 30th Congressional District, in the whole state of Texas, rather, when Jasmine Crockett was running against James Tallarico, and all the shenanigans that the Republicans pulled in that race that really hurt Jasmine Crockett, that denied her a lot of voters, all this BS, right? So Please, people, if you can hear me right now and you're listening to this on June the 1st, 2026, I strongly advise you to vote early. Please do not leave anything to chance. Do not. Please do not. I know that maybe you like to vote on the day of and it's special and it's a nice occasion and you want to go to vote today on election day. But if you're in a state where you know that there are long lines and that you know particularly in your neighborhood that you live in that the lines are really long, while maybe a mile and a half away in a white neighborhood, the lines are 10 minutes long. And so because in a white neighborhood, the average waiting time is maybe 10 minutes, if that, to go and vote. You just go in and out, 15 minutes, you're in and out, boom, done. Whereas in a black neighborhood, in a lot of these places, the average waiting time is 45 minutes to an hour, if not more. This is the racism of this country, the anti-black racism of this country, promulgated by white men in power and a white power structure and a white system. This is what you get, right? White people in many cases, in most cases, can go in and vote, bing bong, go to Madison, Wisconsin, for example, which is a predominantly white area, and boom, they go in and vote, and those white people who go in and vote there, in and out in about 15 to 20 minutes. If you go to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is not all that far away from Madison, I wouldn't say it was that far away, but if you go to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for example, on the other hand, a more predominantly black neighborhood, a predominantly black city, you can be waiting for over 2 hours, if not longer. So you see the racism here. You can't deny the anti-black racism and the reality that black people and then brown people, as well as some poor people, regardless of their racial background, can be waiting for so much longer, especially in black areas, so much longer. So if you're a black person listening to me now, knowing this, you really need to have a plan to vote in advance if your state allows it, as I said, and you need to discuss your plan and the plan for any relative who may be voting in your state or voting or who lives in another state, and as to their elections there, you need to be talking to them, because you don't want somebody waiting, particularly if they are of a certain age, waiting for 5 hours, 6 hours or longer. It's not unheard of. People waiting for 10 plus hours on the line. You know, black people waiting, or this in this country should not be happening, but we know it's been happening for decades and longer. And so, you know, this is the thing. These elections and how they're administered, you know, it's not an accident. This is why it's so important to participate civically on a regular basis in local governance, in local government and governance, so that you keep these people honest and demand things from them. You know, and talk to the Secretary of State or the Board of Elections in your city or county and find out what the hell's going on. Why is it that all these voting machines are in white neighborhoods? Of course, I'm being rhetorical with what I'm about to say here. Why is it that all of these voting machines are in white neighborhoods and there's so many empty ones in those white neighborhoods left to spare, and a small white population who utilizes those machines with many to spare? But in black neighborhoods, in the same city or town or state, you've got 5 voting machines for 2,000 people in that area, in that district, in that town. How is that? Of course, we know the answer. You go to Madison, Wisconsin, for example, and there's a surplus of machines, a surplus, extra machines. But then you go to, and then white people go into there, vote there, and they're in and out in 15 minutes. You go to Milwaukee, as I said earlier, and you've got hundreds and hundreds of people, black people, waiting on the line to vote, waiting hours to vote. Predominantly and overwhelmingly black, waiting for hours to vote. And you've only got 9 machines in there. This happens all over the country. You go to Texas, same thing. Stories were unfolding in Texas earlier this year during that Crockett-Tallarico race, where in Dallas County there were fewer machines, and then you go to these white areas in more white populated counties in Texas, and you've got hardly any waiting time because you've got a surplus of machines, a surplus of machines. It's insane. And it's racist. Hello. So, folks, I spent additional time here because it's so important to have a plan to vote. I've been saying this for weeks, for months, for years. And, you know, sometimes it falls on deaf ears, and then you get to the reality of voting on the day of, and it's like, oh my God, why is this line so long? Well, duh. But people don't listen, and unfortunately, they have to get the experience happen to them before they go, oh, maybe I should have planned out a plan to vote. I should have hatched out and mapped out a plan to vote before I get here. Because then after you get online and wait, you still have to do your ballot, which is why I advocate filling out a ballot beforehand, or at least writing down your choices beforehand. Now, I know that there are some states that don't allow certain things. I know that there are some states that don't allow you to bring water or have water with you as you're waiting on a line, or at least I know Georgia doesn't allow people to hand out water. But again, I want you to, if you're in Georgia right now, I want you to check what the voting rules are there, because, this is the craziness. People who, you're going to celebrate the 250-year mark of this country as it's come to be known, the United States, and yet this country has no uniform voting laws. None. No national system for voting at all. None. And then with what we saw with the Supreme Court last month, you got all of this nonsense going on, just pure nonsense. But please take seriously what I'm saying here. Have a plan to vote. And if you don't have early voting in your state, still have a plan to vote. That doesn't mean you're exempted. You need to still have a plan to vote because it's so critically important. Please do this. I cannot stress enough. You don't want to have your vote not counting. You don't want to do that. And again, if you are going to come in and vote on tomorrow or whenever it is, and the lines are long, be aware that even if you're on the line after the polls close, as long as you are in line, you will get a chance to vote. This is a key piece of information, dear listener, because there's so many people who think, oh my God, I'm on this line, and now it's 7 o'clock, and now it's 7:15. Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to vote. You will be able to vote, okay? Stay in line. Make sure you do not leave that line. This is such a key piece of information which I would like you, dear listener, to amplify. Please amplify this because a lot of people are not educated about this. They're just not. And it's really important to amplify that if you are on a long ass line, whether it's tomorrow, June 2nd, or whether it's any election that you happen to be voting in, stay on that line. Even if the polls have closed, meaning that, oh my goodness me, the polls close at 7 and I'm still on this line and I'm not going to be able to get inside the building to vote. I'm going to turn around and go home. Do not do that. Do not do that. If you stay on that line, you will get a chance to vote and your vote is going to count. I promise you. I can say that for nothing. I can tell you that for nothing, mate. You are going to get a chance to vote. Do not listen to the disinformation campaign that tells you, oh, you must be there by 7 because if you're not, you won't vote. There's all kinds of sneaky ass BS that goes on where you are being told all kinds of things by people who have no idea and who want to confuse you and reduce the voter turnout. So again, I'm going to repeat this. If you are in a state tomorrow or in any time, wherever your time is to vote in your state, and the line is long and you're on it, and because you choose to vote on the day of, which again, I strongly advise that you really get to vote earlier. Vote early if you can, if you are able to, and if you have early voting. But if you're on election day on a line that's long, and here it is now, you know the polls close at 7 p.m. in your state, and you're online now with about, 200 people ahead of you in the line. And it's now 6:55 and you're sitting there going, standing there rather going, oh my goodness, there's no way I'm going to get in here. I'm going to turn around and leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. If you are in the line, you are going to be okay to vote. If you're in line before the polls close, you're going to get a chance to vote. You will. Okay? You will definitely get that chance. So I just want to hammer that home here as well. I want you to spread that message, because so many people have ended up disenfranchising themselves by walking away because they can't bear to stand there any longer, and because they realize, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, the polls close in 5 minutes and there's 150 people ahead of me, and I'm never going to get to vote anyway. And I'm saying, no, you will get to vote. Stay in the line, please. See, this is why we need, dear listener, we need to have voter education courses. I think that's going to be a big thing that we're going to need to do. I'm going to be doing some of that here on the Politicrat. I'm going to be on Substack doing some of this as well. Please subscribe to my Substack. Is popcornreel.substack.com. Once again, popcornreel.substack.com. That, of course, is the place to go. And please subscribe, become a paid subscriber, because I will be giving out free books and movies and music, as I've been doing now over this whole year, plus throughout the last year or so. And so certainly it would pay to become a paid subscriber. It really does. So please do that. If you can't afford it, and again, it's not really a whole lot of money at all, but if you can't afford it, then please become a free subscriber. FREE. So look, looking forward to having your subscription, and thank you to those of you who are paid subscribers and who do subscribe if you're a free subscriber. Thank you very much for doing that. But again, once again, this is really important about staying in line to vote. It's so critically important, folks. But again, this is why I always say to vote early. I mean, I did that here in California, and look, I would also say one other thing about voting early. If you are somebody who likes to vote early and utilizes the postal service, voting by mail, and literally are somebody who wants to just put your ballot into a postal service box, a mailbox, what I would strongly recommend that you do instead is one of two things. One, if you have early voting, to go to, if it's within reach of you and not, 3 cities away or something, I would strongly advise you to drop off your ballot at a voting center. That's what I would advise you to do, number one. Or number two, I would strongly advise you to drop off your ballot in a drop box. Not a mailbox, a drop box. And they are specially marked. They are unique. You will see them in your city, right? These things are very important. It's a very important thing, because the Postal Service mail cannot be trusted. I'm sorry, it just cannot be trusted, especially with election ballots. And you may remember, dear listener, if you are a frequent listener to the Politicrat, that earlier this year, about maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I did an episode of this podcast in which I cited a Supreme Court decision from February of 2026, where Clarence Thomas wrote the majority opinion, and that majority opinion held that a person cannot sue the United States Postal Service under the Federal Tort Claim Act because of a Postal Service worker who chose to deliberately and intentionally refuse to deliver mail to somebody. And this decision actually held that a postal worker was absolutely allowed to refuse to deliver mail to somebody's address, to anybody's address. I kid you not. In fact, I will go over that same Supreme Court decision written by Justice Clarence Thomas later on this week, because people need to be reminded. And this is why this is so important. The focus has to be voting all year long, all year, every year. The focus must be voting. It cannot be the Epstein files. If you're sitting here right now focusing on the Epstein files only and saying that the Epstein files is this and the Epstein files, if you're sitting here focusing on the Epstein files and you're not focusing on voting, I don't think you're for real. I don't think you're for real. Because you can't be for real if you're online talking about Epstein this and Epstein that, and you're not saying any goddamn words about voting, about registering, about voter education, voter mobilization, voter training, voter outreach, getting out the vote. You're not serious, folks. I'm sorry, you're not serious. And you just put there in these chats and online to distract people, to waste a lot of time, and to de-emphasize the importance of voting. You have someone in the White House who is literally stealing the election in advance. He is literally stealing the midterms right in front of your eyeballs. And you're over here talking Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. You're not for real. I'm telling you now, you are not for real if that is who you are. Because surely you must know, in a country where for the better part of a whole year, Donald Trump has been telling all these states, beginning with Texas in July of last year, that, oh, you've got to, gerrymander the district and do this and do that. Harmeet Dillon's 2-page letter, I've told you about that letter over and over again, where she's telling Texas, look, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you know what? Failure to comply could leave you subject to a lawsuit from the Justice Department. Intimidating Greg Abbott, that ghastly governor in Texas, and that wackadoodle, Ken Paxton, who is probably going to be most likely the next senator of Texas. But I'm telling you, dear listener, this is not a joke. This is not a drill. And when that Supreme Court case was decided last month, Louisiana versus Calais, or whatever the hell the thing was called. I think that was it. Yeah, black representation has been eviscerated in this thing. There's no more Voting Rights Act. We told you that was going to happen. I told you here that was going to be the case. And people acting all surprised. Wake the hell up, people. This is not a damn drill. You need to be involved. And all these people out here who keep focusing on the Epstein files, and I'm not saying that that's something that's not to be looked at. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the focus has to be voting. The real focus has to be voting. We need to be having a language and a vocabulary in this country around voting. And I'm not just talking about understanding voting and understanding strategy and understanding pragmatism and what it means to be a pragmatic voter. I'm not only talking about those things because all those things are important. I've spent a lot of time talking about them. I am talking very, very much about the idea that we need to inculcate into this culture voting, getting out the vote, educating. We need to put all of those frames into play and make this cultural and get these organizations involved. And look, listen, I would like to see corporations involved. I would. But the bottom line is these corporations don't want lots of people to vote, because what they want is for less people to vote, because what they want in terms of policy is not popular by the majority of people. So listen, I do agree with Mark Elias, and I played you that audio when he entertained a question that I asked of him through John Harwood a few weeks back, where he said, yeah, we need to have corporations involved in this. And I agree with that, But the bottom line is, the reality is that we need to be involved in this, and we need to play our role. We need to be going every day on social media and on all these platforms, pushing the need to vote, pushing education, pushing voter education and voter literacy. We need to be doing this, right? These corporations aren't going to spend billions of dollars doing that. They're not. They want less people to vote. They really do. Because what they want to see implemented is not popular with most people. And they know that their agenda is not popular. So we need to be doing this. We are very quick to go online to post some videos, some BS, some scandal, but we are not as quick to post about the importance of voting and to remind people in states to vote and any of that, or provide links to where you can go to check your voter registration. We're not as proactive in that, and we need to become that. We have to, because otherwise we become complicit with all of this. The Republicans and Donald Trump are very clear about what to do, right? They are very clear. They are very aggressive about what they want to do to limit voting. What are we doing? Forget the Democrats. Yes, the Democrats have a role to play, and yes, the Democrats need to outreach to black people, period. 100% yes, yes, yes. They do. But we need to be the ones to outreach to black people. We as black people need to absolutely be aggressive here and get out that vote. We need to be talking that language. That needs to be our language now. Don't wait until October, because it's too late then. If you're just talking about this in October, forget it. You need to be talking about this now before we really get to the heat of summer and July 4th, because after July 4th, forget it. People are on holiday, people are this, people are that, people are all over. People's minds are not going to be on voting. I'm telling you, once you're talking about the 250-year mark of the United States of America, and you've got the World Cup coming up in the next few weeks, and that's going to take up 5 weeks in the summer, forget it. People are going to be all over the damn place. In their minds. They're not going to be focusing on November in June or July. They're not. This is what we need to be doing now. But we really need to be doing this every day, even if people aren't focused. It's our job to get people focused, to plant that seed in their minds that voting is critical and civic engagement is critical. And you don't just stop when you vote. You have to keep this going after the election, when the inauguration comes of the candidate in your local area. You need to keep going with this. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's work. It's not like you have to be doing this every single second of your day. And you have busy lives, and I have a busy life. We all have busy lives, but we have to have some kind of tangible or measurable impact on the lives of these elected officials when it comes to them being in power. We have to demand that they do something, or demand that they don't do something. So listen, I know I spent 50 minutes, 50 minutes talking about all this, but this is critically important, folks. It truly is. So please, please, please remind people on social media who follow you, who subscribe to you, that it's critically important to register to vote, to absolutely be aware of checking your voter registration. And remember to have a plan to vote and do so in advance, okay? And if you're on a line, please stay on the line if you're voting on election day. Do not walk away from the line, okay? I know it must be very difficult for many people, but it's so important to vote. Welcome back, and happy Pride Month, wherever you may be. It is Pride Month here in the United States. This is the first day of June. The entire month is a celebration of gay pride, of celebrations of gay people, and people who are gay who've made a huge difference, a monumental difference, and have done their part in the United States and beyond, quite frankly. And Marsha P. Johnson is someone you need to get familiar with, dear listener. If you're not someone who knows who Marsha, oh my gosh, now I'm getting her name wrong. Marsha, M-A-R-S as in Sam, H-A, P, middle initial, P as in Paul, Johnson. make sure that you go and look her up. She's no longer with us. She is was a tremendous person and a tremendous activist as well. Marsha P. Johnson. Please do make sure you know, get familiar with who she was. So that is one thing I wanted to say. And please do celebrate Gay Pride Month. In some shape or form, you've got tremendous people in this country who have really made a difference in their activism, in their music, in their art, in their contributions to society. And yeah, totally, I'm 100% supporter of Pride Month. And so I did want to mention that here on this edition of the Politicrat. Happy Pride Month to all of you. Now, I want to get back to voting here. And I spent what, a good 50 minutes talking about voting. And I do want to emphasize that it's really important that you do vote. And I want to get now specifically into the California primary, because that is something that you really, really need to be aware of. The California primary here in California, of course, is taking place tomorrow. And what I wanted to say is that it's very important, dear listener, that you do vote. And the governor's primary, which is, of course, the primary being held tomorrow, the jungle primary for California, features 6 or 7 candidates who are significant. One of them is the former House Representative and Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra, who, listen, I don't like polls, but I'm going to use them to make a point that I need to make here. Javier Becerra is leading in the most recent polls that have come out. Emerson College put out a poll over the last 2 or 3 days with a plus or minus 3% margin of error. And it showed that Javier Becerra had a 6-point lead at 28%, a 6-point lead over second place Tom Steyer. And then right behind him was, in third place, was Steve Hilton, the Republican, the Fox News wackadoodle. Katie Porter in that poll was fifth. Chad Bianco was fourth. I mean, these are distant fourth and distant fifth. And then you had the other Democrats. Chad Bianco's a Republican, Katie Porter's a Democrat, and then you had Tony Thurmond, I believe, Matt Mahan and Antonio Villaraigosa, distant last with like 1% each. Then in the second poll that was released as well in the last 2 or 3 days from UC Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley, you had a poll that showed Javier Becerra in front. Then you had Steve Hilton second, and then right behind him, about a percentage point behind him, or 2, was Tom Steyer. And then you had Chad Bianco, and you had another candidate, and then you had Katie Porter, fifth or sixth. And then you had Tony Thurmond and Matt Mahan and Antonio Villaraigosa. So, look, the bottom line here, dear listeners, the reason why I state those polls to you is this. If you are a registered voter in California, here in the state of California, and you have not yet voted, here's what I would like you to do. Now, look, I know that voting is extremely personal. People vote for whatever reason. Look, as long as you vote, I care about that. And you should vote, okay? What I'm asking for you in California here to do, if you've not yet voted in the primary, and tomorrow, of course, the primary is election day, June 2nd. That's the last day to vote. Today, June 1st, is still early voting. And my whole point here is this to you, dear listener. If you have not yet voted here in California for governor, for anybody, I strongly advise you to vote for Tom Steyer. You may not like the fact that he's a billionaire. You may not like the fact that he runs ads every 2 seconds here in the state of California. You may be sick to death of seeing his ads, and I am. And I'm a Tom Steyer supporter and voter. I voted for him. I would really like you to vote for him for 2 reasons. One, People talk about, yes, in the primary, vote for who you really want. I get that and I agree with that. However, tomorrow here in California is not just a primary. It is, in the case of the governor's race here, a jungle primary. Which means that you really will have to employ a bit more strategery, if you will, a bit more strategy, if you will, a bit more nuance, if you will. And I'm telling you now, you really, 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 really need to vote for Tom Steyer. Why do I say that? Because again, the top two vote getters tomorrow in the gubernatorial primary here in California will advance to November's general election. I predicted here, dear listeners, several times over the last few months that it would either be a case of one Democrat and one Republican going to the final two this November, or it would be a case of two Democrats going. One of those two outcomes is going to happen. It is not going to be two Republicans. I told you that from Jump Street. When all of these people on social media and all these corporate news media people were panicking, oh my God, it's going to be two Republicans. It's like, no, it's not. It's not going to be two Republicans. That I can assure you of. There's literally a 0.00000000001% chance that that would be the case. I'm telling you here right now, it's not going to be the case. What is more than likely going to be the case is that there's going to be one Democrat and one Republican going to the final two. Now, I read out this poll to you a few moments ago. I gave you the plus and minus on the margin of error. The second plus and minus was was 2 in the margin of error. Okay? What I'm trying to say to you is vote for Tom Steyer to make sure that you have two Democrats going in November. Okay? Because again, he may not be your first choice. I think that the odds are very strong. And again, I hate polls and I really don't usually spotlight polls like this, but I'm doing it for a very strategic reason, if not a selfish reason. The likelihood is that Javier Becerra is going to make it to the final two. Now, again, as I say, you can't believe every poll you read. In fact, I don't really believe any of these polls. The attacks have been flying in on Javier Becerra for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And all of these candidates are punching up at him, including Tom Steyer. And Javier Becerra is also punching back at Tom Steyer. So Javier Becerra's campaign knows that the likelihood is that their campaign and Tom Steyer's campaign are going to be vying for the number one spot or vying for a spot. Those are clearly the top two Democrats who are polling. They are in the top 3 or the top 2 in these polls now. So, dear listener, if you are in California, if you are out here in the state, I am absolutely telling you to vote for Tom Steyer. Why? Because you have, with that vote, a very strong possibility of 2 Democrats making it into the final 2 for November. That's really what I want you to be, okay? Tom Steyer is a progressive. I know that he did things with the prisons, with for-profit prisons, and invested in them and made millions of dollars off of those. I've told you how much I've told you how much that disgusts me. I have absolutely spoken out against it, right? And I have told you over and over again that's the thing about him that I don't like. He is, however, atoning for that by taking his investments out of there, which he did over 20 years ago, and is now using that money to help and benefit those who have been wrongfully incarcerated, who have been caught in the criminal injustice system. And he has now been endorsed by at least 2 anti-incarceration, or I should say pro-criminal justice reform organizations, including Smart Justice California. Smart Justice California. He's done that. He's done that. And he's continuing to do that work. He has absolutely apologized for what he's done. And that shows growth to me in somebody. It does. And I think that's important in a leader of anything, particularly if you're going to lead a state. You have to prepare to admit that you're wrong on something and be open to change. You have to. You've got someone in the White House who is not open to admitting he is wrong and is not open to change, except to wreck the country. So that's the change he wants. But I'm talking in the case of the California governor's race. Tom Steyer is anti ICE. He wants to abolish ICE. He's been on record with that. He supports the billionaire tax, which is going to be on the ballot here in California in November. He is the only major candidate who supports the billionaire tax, and he himself is a billionaire. PG&E, which is the Pacific Gas and Electric. Pacific Gas and Electric is awful here in California. Just ask any Californian. They've been responsible for people's deaths. They've been responsible for so much price gouging. Gavin Newsom, who is currently the governor here, has allowed PG&E to run amok, and the damage has been done. PG&E is running anti-Steyer ads all the time. PG&E is supporting Javier Becerra. And you have the California Association of Realtors, a racist organization, if ever there was, supporting Javier Becerra. Chevron, an oil company, which is actually based in Houston, has donated millions of dollars to Javier Becerra's campaign. And the bottom line is that Tom Steyer supports single-payer health care, and Javier Becerra does not. He doesn't. You have an environmentalist in Tom Steyer. You have someone who's going to go after the tech companies in Tom Steyer. You have somebody who is absolutely going to get out there and fight back against the oil interests who are spending millions of dollars against him. Billionaires are spending millions of dollars against Tom Steyer, including Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, including the Uber company, including McDonald's, including Big Tobacco, Big Oil. All of them are spending millions of dollars against a billionaire. And clearly, if you've got billionaires spending millions of dollars against you, you must be doing something right. And my goodness me, Tom Steyer, billionaire though he may be, is not one of these toxic billionaires. And I really need people here in California who have not yet voted to understand that every billionaire is not a toxic person, is not inherently toxic. Because people have a very narrow-minded approach to things. And what I say is that it is immoral to have this many billionaires in the United States. There are 255 of those billionaires here in California alone. There are 1,135 billionaires in the entire country, according to the Wall Street Journal, in an article they did last October, I believe it was. 1,135 billionaires total in the country. That's immoral. Especially when you have a wealth gap in this country as wide as it is, and especially in this state of California, where the wealth gap is as wide as the Grand Canyon, if not wider. That's immoral. Having 255 billionaires in a state, that is immoral. 255 billionaires in California is immoral. I'm not against a billionaire existing. What I am against is a billionaire class and a billionaire group and a billionaire, when you have excessive billionaires, when you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of billionaires, that is not a healthy thing. That is immoral. It is inherently immoral. It's inherently immoral. And so that's what I'm against. I am. I believe, listen, I'm not shilling for billionaires when I say this. I am not, if I say that every single billionaire in the world is not an evil person, that's not me shilling for anything. I think people are just incredibly narrow-minded in this country. and incredibly knee-jerk in this country and incredibly bigoted, not against billionaires. I'm just saying the mentality of some people in this country is just so incredibly narrow-minded and extremely, extremely judgmental. It is. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So, listen, all of this is to say that Tom Steyer, a billionaire, right, is somebody who, there's some things about him I don't like. I told you the private prison thing is really unforgivable. I have to look at the totality of the guy, and I get it. For a lot of people listening to me now, here in California, that is going to be the thing that turns you right off. I'm not going to vote for him. Fine, then don't vote for him. If you are stuck only on the fact, and forgive me, I'm just going to be really blunt here. If that's the thing that prevents you from voting for him, and you can't see past that, then that's up to you. Then don't vote for him, man. Don't vote for him. You know, if you can't see past that, then, I think that you need to open the lens up and look at everything, But again, everyone's going to be different, and it's going to be deeply personal. Maybe you're somebody who has been wrongly incarcerated or knows someone who has. So for you, that's the end, right? For you, that might be the thing that breaks the camel's back and makes you go, no, I can't. Or maybe you don't know someone who's wrongly incarcerated. Maybe your moral principles tell you that this is despicable. I can't do that. Fine. Then don't vote for him, okay? You've got Javier Becerra, vote for him. I've always said to you, dear listener, here in California, that the two best candidates in a group that is not a strong group of candidates, by the way, I have always said to you that the two best candidates in this whole gubernatorial race here in California are Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer. I've always said that to you. I've always said it. Now, what I've also always said is that I think the better candidate of the two is Tom Steyer. Why do I say that? I get it. He doesn't have the experience that Javier Becerra does for 35 years here in California, that he's been in California politics, Javier Becerra. But what Tom Steyer, does have is a fresh set of ideas, some of which are not going to see the light of day in the California Assembly and State Senate. But that's where you and I come in. We have to be the ones participating and civic engaging and pressuring these politicians. And some of these ideas from Tom Steyer will see the light of day. And some of these ideas from Tom Steyer are good ones. Many of them are. And I'm telling you right now, dear listener, it is so critically important to understand that you can always vote for Javier Becerra in the general election. He is going to be one of the top two. I would be shocked if he's not. But again, you have to make that call, folks. You have to totally make the call. If you want to vote for Javier Becerra, go ahead. I'm talking about strategy here, okay? Because I think you really should be voting for Tom Steyer. If you want to see two Democrats on the ballot in November here in California for governor, then please vote Tom Steyer. Please. Because nothing spells anxiety than going into November here in California for the governor's race and seeing either Javier Becerra or Tom Steyer face off against Steve Bloody Hilton. You don't want that. Can you imagine? Steve Hilton doesn't belong anywhere on that stage, let alone in a poll. And this is why I think it makes better sense strategically to vote for Tom Steyer for the sake of the primary. It's a jungle primary. It is not just any old primary, right? I would tell you to vote for whomever you wanted to if California just had a conventional primary where you just voted. I would tell you that. But I'm sorry, this is not the case here in California. Don't blame me. Talk to the Secretary of State, Shirley Weber. Talk to the California legislature. Ask them why. there is a jungle primary in the governor's race. I can't tell you. So again, dear listener, I urge you here in California, if you are a California registered voter who has not yet voted, and I would say, well, damn, what are you waiting for? You've only got one more day after this one. June the 2nd is the last day here in 2026 for you to vote in the California primary. Please get a move on and vote. I would say vote Tom Steyer. And yes, I voted for him. I know. So yes, there's a selfishness about it from my angle, my point of view. Full disclosure, I've told you many times here, if you listened, that that's who I voted for. In fact, Tom Steyer was here in San Francisco over the weekend giving a really good rally stump speech. And he had a few speakers speak before him, including Representative Latifah Simon, who is a congresswoman from, I think, Alameda, who is in Congress, in the U.S. Congress. The sister, she spoke for a bit. I think I should probably play you. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll play you parts of the speech from. Maybe I may play you some of that actually here in this episode. Parts of the speech from Tom Steyer tomorrow, from what he did on Saturday here in San Francisco. Yeah, I think I'll do that. And you can listen to what he had to say, some of what he had to say, because I think he was terrific in this speech. I actually got to meet him, shook his hand, spoke to him for a few moments. I was wearing a New York Knicks jersey, a Jalen Brunson jersey, and he was keen to point out to me that he was rooting for the Knicks and that he is a New York Knicks fan. Of course, just don't say that too loudly here in California. I'm sure, though, that's okay. There's a lot of New Yorkers here in California. Certainly here in San Francisco there are. And certainly I've been getting a lot of those people come up to me over the last few days and the last few months, actually, supporting the Knicks and saying to go Knicks. So, but Tom Steyer was spending a lot of time. He spent a couple of minutes talking to me about Jalen Brunson and then the Knicks. So he is a supporter of the Knicks. We took a selfie together, and Tom Steyer spent a good 20 minutes after his speech, glad handing with supporters and people who attended the rally. This guy is for real. And I spoke to him in person. I wish I forgot to talk about the prisons with him. I should have. I completely forgot. And I'm just being really frank with you. I would have said, I'm really thankful that you don't any longer support these prisons. I would have said to him, but in the moment, sometimes you don't think about that. I don't want to say I was starstruck, but I also want to say that, yeah, when you're in the moment, sometimes you don't remember to say that. And I'm just being really frank with you. And I think you can understand that. I'm not making excuses for myself. But the bottom line here, dear listener, is you watch this guy in person. I posted some video of part of his speech as well on Substack, popcorn, reel.substack.com. You realize that this guy is for real. He talked emphatically against the billionaire class. He is vehemently against, even though he is a billionaire, he said he's vehemently against the billionaire class. He said, one of the things he said in this speech, and I'll play you part of this later on, part of the speech later, as I said, he said that he was not born a billionaire and that he will not die a billionaire. I mean, this guy totally is against the billionaire class. I mean, he is. And he even addressed the whole thing about him being a billionaire and how that might be awkward for some people. I'm just saying to you that Tom Steyer has been endorsed by many progressive organizations. He's been endorsed by the progressive California gubernatorial candidate Betty Yee. Remember, Betty Yee dropped out several weeks ago, back in April, and the next day she endorsed Tom Steyer. She's a progressive. She's been the comptroller in the state of California. She was for quite a while. Betty Yee, she's a progressive voice, has been for a long time here in the state of California. So she supports him. Ro Khanna, the progressive, I almost said Republican, progressive Democrat representative out of the Silicon Valley area who doesn't take money from the tech bros. Ro Khanna, he, of course, who of course is at the forefront of getting the Epstein files released. He is a strong supporter of Tom Steyer. He's endorsed him. Bernie Sanders' organization, Our Revolution, has endorsed Tom Steyer. Now, Bernie himself hasn't explicitly endorsed him. You know, I'm just listen. The endorsements don't really move the needle for most voters. Quite frankly, the endorsements are mean more to the campaigns than they do perhaps to the everyday voter. But what the endorsements do is what the endorsements do is give context to the voter. Okay, it's good to know that this person's endorsed by this. It gives the voter extra context to help that voter perhaps make up their mind and say, okay, well, you know what? I may have some reservations about Tom Steyer, but look at who is endorsing him. And okay, Smart Justice California, a pro-criminal justice reform group that helps people who've been incarcerated or wrongfully incarcerated and does all this great work in terms of helping people, they have endorsed him. Our Revolution, Bernie Sanders' organization, has endorsed him. There was an Our Revolution organization speaker who was actually at the rally who spoke on Saturday here in San Francisco ahead of Tom Steyer. She introduced him. I forget her name now, right? Then you have Representative Latifah Simon, a sister, black woman, congresswoman, who endorsed him as well, has endorsed him. She spoke at the rally, as I mentioned. Then you have a lot of these unions endorsing him, the progressive unions, SEIU, all kinds of unions endorsing him. You have the California Nurses Association representative there endorsing him. I mean, these are all progressive groups who work hard on behalf of people, who work for the people's interests. People like the California Nurses Association, who, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Republican, kept kept fighting with during the time he was governor here, the Republican, Arnold, right? He was fighting with the Nurses Association every day. He was just a menace, Arnold was, in this state as governor. And bottom line is that that organization is backing Tom Steyer. At least certainly many of the people in the organization are. And one of them spoke out before the rally for Tom Steyer. Jane Fonda. And you know who Jane Fonda is. She is an environmentalist. She is an activist for, 60 years plus now she's been an activist. And, oh yeah, she's also an actor. She's also someone who, remember, in the 1980s did all those workout videos. And that really helped kind of reform, or not reform, but kind of turn the tide, because, of course, after the 70s and the Hanoi Jane incident, all of that, she was basically a pariah in this country. And then in the 80s, she came back with these great videos, these exercise videos, which were record-setting sellers on VHS. If you are of a certain age, you remember that. And helped kind of rehabilitate her image in a way. And, of course, Jane Fonda, the Oscar winner, if you care about those kinds of things. When, remember, she won for Clute in the early 1970s. That was, of course, with Donald Sutherland, who is no longer with us. Jane Fonda, who is all of 88 years young. And, she's endorsed Tom Steyer. All of these people have endorsed Tom Steyer. And let me tell you, Jane Fonda endorsing a billionaire. You do not have that on your bingo card ever. But yeah, Jane Fonda has endorsed Tom Steyer. In fact, there's an ad here in California with Jane Steyer, listen to me. Jane Fonda doing the voiceover for the ad. And her organization also has endorsed him as well. So look, he has pledged to fight for racial justice. He's said he's going to vigorously prosecute hate crimes, or get them prosecuted, and push the Attorney General to do that, and all these kinds of things, So look, again, this is not a time, dear listener, and please hear me out here. This is not a time for us to be voting for the perfect person, because there is no perfect person. There's no perfect person at all. And please don't make perfect the enemy of the good. Please don't let one thing, and it depends on what that one thing is, of course. Please don't let one thing sideline you from all the other things that the candidate does. Do research. You don't have to trust me. Everything I'm telling you, though, is documented, everything. Okay? And I want you to focus on research. Okay? Tom Steyer, research him, go to his website tomsteyer.com, Tom, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, EYER.com, tomsteyer.com, TOM, S as in Sam, TEYER.com. Please go and research it yourself for 5 minutes. Look at his website, look at the positions he takes. He's on Substack at Tom Steyer. Go and look up his positions, look up his writings, look at what he's written about. He supports the billionaire tax. He is the only leading gubernatorial candidate who does. None of the others does. Katie Porter, who keeps telling you that she does not take corporate money, absolutely is against the billionaire tax. Square that circle, won't you? I invite you to square that circle. Here is a candidate who tells you forever that she doesn't take corporate money, yet she does not support this billionaire tax. Oh, there are other ways to tax billionaires. Well, how about this way? Stop looking for the perfect. This tax is a one-time only tax of 5% of the 255 billionaires' income. It goes to $100 billion revenue, goes to absolutely providing health care in this state. Why would you be against that? Why would anybody be against that unless you're the healthcare companies, right? Blue Shield here in California pumped in millions of dollars against Tom Steyer and pumped that money into Javier Becerra's campaign. Surprise, surprise. Now, if you're someone who believes, oh, well, pragmatism, we need to just get someone with experience, fine. Well, I support pragmatism too, but I also support strategy. When you're talking about a primary, and especially a jungle primary, yeah, I support strategy, strategery, and pragmatism is strategery and strategic too. I'm saying to you that in a jungle primary, the rules are a little bit different. And when November comes, you can vote for who you really want, right? Because it's either going to be 2 Democrats or 1 Democrat and 1 Republican. I have a sneaky feeling that it's going to be 2 Democrats. I really do. And if you feel comfortable voting for Javier Becerra, vote for him. If you feel comfortable voting for Tom Steyer, vote for him. I would say vote for Tom Steyer because of the reasons I've given you. Okay? I would say that. Okay? I like the fact that he has different ideas. We need something different other than the status quo. Because for me, and he is a positive candidate, Becerra, he's a good candidate. For me, Becerra is going to be a bit more of the same. We already had Gavin Newsom here, and we still have him here for a few more months. And while he did some positive things, and he certainly did, he also did some things that were not good. Okay? Most people in the country only know about the things he said on the podcast, which are, the things, the guests he had on, the racist guests he had on at the beginning of last year, Charlie Kirk, who's no longer here, and Steve Bannon, who is, the 2 racists, the 2 white nationalists. And then what he said about trans people, which I thought was just despicable. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with Pride Month. After what he said on his podcast last year, back in January of last year. But most people in the country only know about those things. They don't know about his record in the state. And it's a mixed record for me. Javier Becerra was on a debate stage a couple months ago saying, I give Gavin Newsom an A. He was asked about the A, what grade would you give, and what, all the candidates were. And he gave him an A grade. I would not give Gavin Newsom an A grade for California. I would give him a grade a bit lower than that. But one thing Gavin Newsom did do, among others, is to put a moratorium on the death penalty in this state. I think that's a very good thing. And people need to recognize that that's a good thing that he did. Maybe some people will say that's a low bar. Maybe some people will say, well, that's the least you could do, But the bottom line is he did it. How many governors in this state have done that, right? So Gavin Newsom did do that in his first term, about a year or so in, I think back in 2018. I can't believe it. It feels like he's been in the governorship a lot longer than 2 terms, but I don't know. But anyway, so and there's some other things he's done positively. But the bottom line is that he's also done pretty well with the budget here in this state as well. He has, the budget that's been proposed here in California a couple of weeks ago now, 2.5 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, is still yet to be negotiated and voted upon. Sometime this month, the California legislature, the state Senate, and the state assembly, which is the equivalent of the House, and the state Senate, obviously the equivalent of the U.S. Senate, in the sense that there's 2 houses in the state of California, obviously like every legislature in every state. They will be deliberating on and voting on this sometime this month. I don't know when in the month. I'll have to go get the research on that. But the bottom line is that budget now is coming at around 300. The revised budget is now for the state of California for the year 2026 to 2027 is now revised slightly upward to $349 billion. And I've talked about this on Substack in some Substack lives I've done. And so this is really critically important, folks. It really is. If you're here in California, understand what this is. Please do exercise your franchise. Do not fail to do that today or tomorrow. It's so important. Vote in every election in your jurisdiction. I don't care if it's dog catcher, shoe shiner, roach exterminator. I don't care what. Maybe you're against extermination of roaches. I'm just being serious here. Please vote. It's a sin to live in any state in this country where the right to vote is under attack, where people have died for the opportunity for you to vote, and you choose just not to vote at all. I think that is sinful. I do. I think it's sinful. I think it's despicable. You cannot be living in a state in this country and not vote. You cannot. You have to vote, okay? And you also need to be engaged, right? People just vote. So many people just vote and then they just turn around and don't vote again until the next election. You have to get involved. These people are not going to do anything if you don't pressure them to do what you want them to do. You cannot afford to just vote and then turn away. You need to vote, and then you need to put pressure on these people and hold them accountable. That is your power. Your vote is your power, and your engagement is your power. You're engaging with these elected officials, whether you voted for them or whether you voted for someone else, or whether you voted for them or not. Let me put it that way. You need to engage these people. As the great, legendary Frederick Douglass, who educated himself as an enslaved black man and became the most prolific and legendary abolitionist ever in this country, once said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will." You need to keep that in mind, dear listener, as you go along here. And it's important to vote. Voting is first and foremost. But it's not the only thing you need to be doing. You need to engage. This is what I said earlier about having a vocabulary to vote and get involved in voting and get involved with civic engagement. Please, it's so important. You can become a poll worker. You can become a precinct committee captain. I've done that kind of work here in San Francisco at some elections, at least one election. You please must get involved. I've done this before. I continue to do it. You have to understand who is running your local government. Who is your local elected official? Most people in this country, I dare say, have no idea who their local elected official is. They have no idea who they need to call if there's something going on with their sanitation, their garbage not being picked up. They may have no idea who those people are who are running these positions, who's on the school board in their city, who's on the school board in their state if there's a state school board. Have no idea who the treasurer is, or who the comptroller is, or who the, I can go on and on and on with the officers. So you have to be familiar with what is going on locally. And as James Baldwin once said, if you do not know what has gone on before you, you do not know what is going on around you. So please, if you're here in California and you're voting either today or tomorrow, June 2nd, 2026, make sure for governor you vote Tom Steyer. I'll be right back. The following episode of The Politicrat contains foul language. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back. I want to play this reminder to you. I want to play this actually as a reminder to you, dear listener, not to heed this advice. It's terrible advice. Granted, what you are about to hear happened almost 10 years ago, in July of 2016, on the television program Democracy Now!, which is a progressive news show that Amy Goodman has been in charge of and anchors for, has done this for more than 30 years. I think it's 30 years or 35 years, whatever it is. And you can find it at democracynow.org. That's democracynow.org. Also online, also on television here in the United States. I just want to let you know that what you're about to hear is the thing you should not do. And Eddie Glaude, who you see, if you're someone who still watches, and I don't know why you would, corporate news media, Eddie Glaude, the professor out of Princeton, yes, the black man, who has written books, and some of his books have been quite good. I have one or two of his books. But this is the same Eddie Glaude who you see on MS Now all the time. I know he's still on there. And when I used to watch MSNBC, he would be on there routinely. And he gets invited. He's part of basically the furniture there at MS Now. And he made this absurd statement about the presidential election of 2016, 4 months before it took place. This piece of advice, dear listener, you should never, ever follow.
I want to end just by asking you and Langston about your choice for president. Bernie Sanders just endorsed Hillary Clinton. Your thoughts on that? Then we're going to have a post-show conversation.
Yeah, I'm not, I believe like Jose Saramago in Seeing, that wonderful novel written by that Portuguese writer, Nobel Prize winner in 1996, that we should blank out. That those of us who are not in the battleground states, that those of us who are in blue states or red states, that we should just leave the ballot blank. As Melville's Bartleby Scrivener says, I prefer not. I can't stand either one of them.
And I can't stand stupid bullshit like that from you, Eddie Glaude. And Eddie Glaude, who is just, I think, just really stupid on this, told you nearly 10 full years ago, dear listener, 10 full years ago next month, to leave your ballot for President of the United States blank if you are in a so-called non-battleground state, because you can't stand either candidate. Where the fuck did that get us to, Eddie? And you know what? Eddie Glaude is all over MSNOW, or as I call it, MS Now or Never. But you know what's also happened in that intervening 10-year period since he said that bullshit? While he stayed on the air, what has also happened is that all of these black women have been let go from that same network. Isn't that interesting? Tiffany Cross let go, Joy Reid let go, Tamron Hall of NBC forced out constructively with a pissant contract. Melissa Harris Perry, who may have gone before 2016, I don't remember. She's pushed out at MSNBC at the time it was called that. Just notice all of these black women at the same time have been let go. Eddie Glaude, however, he remains. After making a dumbass statement like that. Oh yeah. Now again, that was on Democracy Now! Okay? There is video of this. I posted the video of him saying what you just heard on my Substack, popcornreel.substack.com. You can go there and look at it yourself with your own two eyes and listen with your own two ears. It's also on YouTube. If you search Democracy Now!, I think you can find it there too. But certainly on YouTube, that's how I got the video and audio of it. And he's sitting there with this smug ass look on his face, telling you, dear listener, to leave your ballot blank for president if you are in a state that's a non-battleground state. I say bullshit to stuff like that. I tell you, dear listener, make sure you fill out every goddamn race on your ballot. Never, ever leave a ballot blank. You are literally defeating yourself if you take that stupid advice from Eddie Glaude. This is a so-called professor who is telling you in July of 2016 to leave your ballot blank for the presidential race if you're in a so-called non-battleground state. Listen to me. Listen good. Every damn state in this country is a battleground state. Better yet, and better put, there is no such thing as a battleground versus a non-battleground. But you know what there is when it comes to voting? There is no such thing as a non-battleground state or a battleground state. Let me be more specific. But you know what there is such a thing as? Voting. And you know what there also is such a thing as? Your ass getting to the polls and voting. Don't decide to leave anything blank. Why? Why would you do something like that? This is part of the reason we're in this goddamn mess to begin with. Bullshit advice like that of Eddie Glaude, telling you that you should leave your ballot blank for president. Because I can't stand either one of them. You dumbass. Comparing Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump like they're the same goddamn thing? You know, I wonder if Eddie Glaude has ever apologized for saying that. And I don't know if he has. I've not done the research to find out. And listen, I know he's on Substack. I know he is. And if I had him on my Substack, I'd tell him immediately, why did you recommend people to leave their ballots blank? And do you have any regrets about that? Because, I mean, I just look at him with a really kind of jaundiced eye. I'm not saying that the guy, listen, I don't dislike him as a person, but I just don't trust him, okay? I'm saying that now, right out on Front Street. I see him on and he's, I'm not a hater of him. I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying I don't trust that brother. I don't trust him. Anybody who can get up there and tell you to leave a ballot blank because you can't stand either of them, and you're not in a so-called battleground state, that person's telling you to suppress yourself at the ballot box. And I don't trust anybody, I don't care who the fuck they are, what they look like, who tells me or anybody that they should leave a ballot blank for some goddamn reason. You never, ever leave a ballot blank. You are leaving a vote to a Republican or to someone else who is going to hurt your interests. I don't care if you're here in California and it's now 7 o'clock at night and 10 p.m. on the East Coast and 7 p.m. at night Pacific on your coast. I don't care. Vote. I don't care if the fucking result's been announced. Vote. You exercise your franchise. I do not care where you are in the country. You have to get out and vote in every one of these races. Don't leave any of them blank. And Eddie Glaude is one of these people who told you 10 years ago to do that, and yet his ass is still on network television. Anybody who says what you just heard from him a few moments ago should be disqualified from being on television. Okay? Period. Full stop. End of. You have to be really, really careful here, dear listener, because you're going to get bullshit like this, and granted, that was 10 whole years ago. But I play that again because I don't want you to forget that he said this. And you're going to hear things like this being said now during this election year. Oh, yes, you will. You've probably heard them already on social media, on Substack, in chats, from people who are so-called celebrities who don't know shit from Shinola or their ass from their elbow. You're going to hear this kind of stuff. And I'm telling you to be careful. I'm not alarming you. I'm just telling you to keep your ears open. And remember to ask yourself, if you hear someone telling you something, do the research. Don't just take what they say for gospel. I've told you many times, dear listener, you can check anything I say. You have a computer or a phone and you have internet and Wi-Fi. You can check. You can check. And I'm telling you, what I'm saying is completely documented. I may make a mistake here or there with a date, a time, a name, but in terms of the actual content of the information, I'm telling you, this is all back. I've got all the backing. It's all there in black and white. I've got audio, I've got video, I've got receipts, I've got books, I've got letters, I've got documents. I can always reference these things, and I almost always do every single time. So I'm not just talking out my backside. Forgive the visual. I am telling you that this stuff is happening, and Eddie Glaude is not someone I'm going to go to get election advice. I'm not going, and I'm sorry, I'm going to just say this, I'm not going to an academic to get my voting advice from them. Sorry, I'm not. And people like this are propped up and put out in front of us as some kind of authority. And these people are not. They are the authorities on behalf of someone else, if you know what I mean. What is the interest in somebody telling you to leave a ballot blank for a particular race? We have to start thinking and being much more intentional about what the hell we do. And so I wanted to play that clip for you again. I did a few weeks ago, but I want people to be reminded, because we can't be screwing around here with this stuff. I don't care which state you live in. You cannot afford to leave any race blank. Whatever election you vote in, never, ever, ever leave a race blank. Seriously, you cannot be doing that. You've thrown away your vote to somebody who is harmful to you. And I do not ever, ever recommend doing that stupid bullshit that Eddie Glaude advised. As I said, he is part of the reason we're in this mess right now. And yet he still sits up there on MS Now as if everything is everything. And again, consider the sources of your information. Where the hell are you getting your information from? If you're getting it off social media, you're probably doing the wrong thing. In fact, you are doing the wrong thing. And look, I'm on social media myself. But what I'm telling you is that I can vouch for all the information that I am telling you. You can go and search and check it yourself. And if I've got something wrong, I'll come back and say so. But I'm telling you, because I listen back to all of the things I do, I know what the hell I'm talking about. I know what the hell I'm talking about. Eddie Glaude, when he makes statements like that, does not. He doesn't. And again, why is an academic, of all people, telling you to leave a ballot blank for a particular race if you're in a particular place? As long as you're here in the United States, or if you're overseas and registered to vote here, as long as you can do either of those things, you need to vote in every race. I don't care if it's for cockroach catcher or dog catcher or shoe shiner. You need to vote in every goddamn race on your ballot, or as people say, vote down ballot. Down ballot means vote in every single race that is on your ballot. That's what you need to be doing every time you vote, mate. You cannot afford to be doing these cutesy bullshit things because one stupid ass professor is going, ooh, I can't stand either of them. Well, Professor Glaude, speaking of which, you don't have to like the goddamn people you're voting for, okay? This is not a popularity contest. This ain't about a beauty pageant, mate. It's not a beauty pageant. You don't have to like the people you vote for. Liking or not liking them is really not that important. Yes, would you rather vote for someone that you find to be likable? Yeah. Or as in the infamous words of President Obama or Senator Obama at the time on the debate stage in 2008, you're likable enough, Hillary. You're likable enough. Right? But my God, it's not about whether you like somebody or not. We've got to stop being so enamored by celebrity and whether you like them, whether you don't. I get it, yes. I understand there's lots of people who vote who are not going to vote for someone who they don't like. But there are lots of people who vote for people who do some evil things. Look at the guy in the White House. Oh, I don't agree with everything he says. I don't like him, but but you vote for his policies, which is really what we should be doing in this country. Voting for policies, not voting for Donald Trump's policies, as most white people who voted did do all 3 times in the times that Donald Trump has run for the top office in this country, but voting for people whose policies reflect your values. Because the majority of white voters who voted for Donald Trump 3 times are voting for their whiteness. They're not voting for economic betterment. They know this guy's a fucking failure. They know the guy bankrupted 6 of his own bloody casinos. That guy is not going to give you economic betterment or empowerment. So what is he going to give you? Absolutely nothing. The guy told you last month he did not care about your financial situation. So you knew this. And you knew that in June of 2024, there were 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists who said that Biden, before he dropped out, his economy would be much better than Donald Trump's if Biden got back in a second time, and Donald Trump would have a recession in the next 2 or 3 years if he got back in. And here we are in a recessionary economy, basically. We're heading towards that right now, if not already. With a war that has been running for 3 months at least, 4 months almost. And a war that, it's been more than 3 months now that this war has been going on. And counting. Shows no sign of stopping in Iran. A legal war. And these damn idiots, these racists who voted for Trump 3 times, they know this. These white farmers, they knew this. They're not voting for him because he's going to improve the economy. They're going to vote for him because he's helping them to preserve whiteness. That's what this is about. That's what it is about. It's not about, they're voting against their economic interests. No, they're voting for their whiteness. That is what the vast majority of white voters do in the United States of America. Which would explain why white voters are the only group in the United States who consistently vote in their majority for Republicans. They're the only group that does this, of any group in the country. The only racial group who continues to vote in its majority, male and female, for Republicans are white voters. Yeah, it's true. So, Eddie Glaude, you really need to do some schooling. You need to go back to school. Forget your professorship at Princeton. You need to go to school. I don't care how much you know about black history and black consciousness. You're not being conscious, brother. When you're telling folk, including black people, to leave a ballot blank because it's a race that doesn't really matter in a so-called non-battleground state and because you can't stand the 2 of them. How the hell are you going to make that statement? You're equating Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump? I can't stand either of them? Really? That kind of bullshit got us into this fucking mess we're in, Professor Cloud. And for you to be sitting up there peddling your fucking books after what you said 10 years ago, as if you don't have a freaking hand in being complicit in where we are now as to why we're here now? You don't have a freaking hand in that? It's shameful. And you should be ashamed of yourself, brother. I'll be right back. Welcome back. And finally, I'm going to play you excerpts from a speech that Tom Steyer gave this past Saturday here in San Francisco in a campaign stop here. One of the last campaign stops that Tom Steyer will do before tomorrow's gubernatorial primary here in the state of California. And again, he spoke for probably about 10-15 minutes. So you're going to hear 2 or 3 excerpts, maybe I think 2 or 3, whichever, excerpts of the speech by Tom Steyer, the candidate, one of the candidates for governor here in California. He is a progressive billionaire, and yes, there is such a thing. And listen, would I rather not vote for a billionaire? Of course, but not every billionaire, I know the dreaded not every, right? But not every billionaire in the world is an evil person. You know, it's just so stupid to think that that's the case. You've got billionaires who are doing positive things like Rihanna, like Taylor Swift, like Melinda Gates, like Mackenzie Scott. I can go on, right? Robert Smith, who have done really positive things. Robert Smith, a brother who is a billionaire, a black man who's a billionaire, gave all this money, all these scholarships out to students at Morehouse College and HBCU. You know Morehouse College. And all of the graduates in attendance at this high school graduation got scholarships to Morehouse College from the billionaire Robert Smith. So, this notion that every single billionaire out here is a horrible, toxic, evil person is just not true. And we just get consumed and inundated with Elon Musk and with, Sam Altman and people like that. People, of course, like Bill Ackman and people like David Sachs and Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and all these other scumbags. And I guess we all think that because we see those scumbags all over the place, Donald Trump, of course, included, that that every billionaire is evil. And of course, we know that's not true. So that narrative flies around way too much. But anyway, all of that is to say that you are about to hear from Tom Steyer. He says some things in this speech in San Francisco that he gave over the weekend that are really worth listening to and listening to carefully, particularly if you are a California voter who has not yet voted in this primary. And if you are, well, what the hell are you waiting for? You've got today and you've got tomorrow only, Tuesday, June the 2nd, 2026, the last day that you as a registered voter here in California can vote in the California primary, including the gubernatorial primary, a jungle primary where the top 2 vote getters will advance to November's midterm election, okay? So please make sure that you make Tom Steyer one of those 2 candidates, okay? I am voting for him. I already did vote for him. I told him I did. He was very thankful for that. And now, here in excerpts of the speech are excerpts. Again, I repeat, are excerpts. Here in these excerpts is Tom Steyer.
Have picked their candidate. Javier Becerra is backed by a roster of corporations and billionaires who got rich by ripping you off. And who want a governor who will let them keep doing it. Yes. Chevron, Meta, Uber, Airbnb, PG&E, wow, and McDonald's have given tens of millions of dollars to boost his campaign and stop ours. Amazingly, big tobacco joined the big money brigade yesterday. Can you believe that? They had to do it. They felt left out. Ask yourself, do you want the same future Chevron does? Do you want the same things Meta wants? Do you think big tobacco wants good things for the people of California? Look, these companies might be selfish, but they are not stupid. They don't give hundreds of thousands of dollars to get someone elected unless they know he's going to be on their side. It's not charity. It's an investment. And corporations expect a return on their investment in Javier Becerra. They're backing the guy whose chief selling point is he knows the system. He's been part of that system for a really long time. Of course they love it. They love the system because it's working really well for them. They want to keep your rent high. They want to keep your bills high. And they don't want you to have affordable health care. They want you to vote for Javier Becerra, but here's what you need to know. They don't care about you. They only care about their bottom line. They want the best deal they can get, and what happens to you is just the cost of doing business. And they know I will lower costs for working Californians at the expense of their profits. And that's why they're spending over $50 million to stop me. That's the most outside spending in a primary in Californian history. To quote FDR, never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hatred for me, and I welcome their hatred. Look, if the people who are ripping you off are against me, I've got to be doing something right. They know that in a world where politicians serve the special interest, I can't be bought. It's simple. If we win, the corporations lose. The young people who are getting screwed should be able to have hope for their future, and that future should be in California. This is the richest state in the richest country in the history of the world. It's unacceptable that so many Californians have to struggle just to make ends meet. Here's the truth. For every bill that's too high, there's a special interest profiting from making it that way. They want you to believe that that's inevitable. That's just the way the market works. Okay, bullshit. We don't have to accept that. I'm running for governor because I know that a better California is possible. I know what it looks like. And I know that we can win it together. We can win a California where no one has to choose between seeing a doctor and putting food on the table. Where you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay for being sick. You just have to worry about how to get well. Because we can deliver single-payer health care in California. We can win a California where you can afford to build a life in the place you grew up, where you pay your rent and plan to buy, where you can trust that if you fall on hard times, the state has your back. Because we can build 1 million new homes that Californians can afford to buy. We can win a California where your utility bill reflects the cost of electricity, not the needs of PG&E's shareholders. Where you aren't price gouged for someone else's insane war in the Middle East. And where you don't get laid off to get a bigger bonus for a tech billionaire. Because we can take on the monopolies. We can take on the monopolies and break their chokehold on our markets. We can win a California where AI is a tool for workers, not a replacement of workers. Where data centers pay their own way. Where we can fund great schools and health care for all. Because we can tax the hell out of these corporations and billionaires. They got rich here and then they pulled the ladder up so no one else could get up there. We can have a California where all of our neighbors feel safe at home, at work, and at school. Where we treat Trump like the crook that he is, and ICE and its leaders like the criminals that they are. Because we can take on Trump, and we can prosecute ICE all the way up to Stephen Miller. Together, we can make California a state that works for working people again. That's the goal. A California where a child will have 2 decades of free, excellent public education. Where her parents have access to health care and child care and good paying jobs. Where she'll grow up in a home her family can afford, in a community with clean air and water, in a state that tells her she can do anything, regardless of what she looks like or where she was born. Your vote is not for me. Your vote is for that California. That's what the billionaires and corporations don't want. That's what they spent $50 million to try to stop. That's why we got to get out there and win it. Vote by vote, ballot by ballot. That's what we're doing on Tuesday. Because here's what PG&E and Net and Chevron don't want you to know. None of this is far off. These dreams are not too big. Anyone who says otherwise is invested in a system that is rigged against you. Let's prove them wrong on Tuesday. If we win, the corporations lose. Look, it's been the greatest privilege of my life to travel up and down this state for the last 6 months. Everywhere you go in California, you're reminded there's no place like this one. And you guys know I'm a climate guy, so you know I can talk for hours about California's natural beauty. I won't do it today, thank you. But what this race has reminded me, there are no people on this planet like Californians. And I'm honored, and they're here today to have the very best on my side. I'm talking about the nurses. I'm talking about the educators and school employees, the environmentalists, the child care and home care providers, the stage hands and entertainment industry workers, the restaurant and hotel workers. I'm not in this race for me. I'm in it for them, and I'm in it for you. And the people keeping the prices high are supporting Becerra and trying to stop me. That should tell you everything you need to know. And let me say this. Don't be fooled by a fear of a lockout that there are going to be 2 Republicans. That has about a 0% probability of happening. This is a 3-way race with only 2 spots on the ballot. A MAGA Republican, a corporate Democrat, and you guys and me. Let me say this. You're not voting for who's on the ballot. You're voting for the California that comes after it. The California Steve Hilton is running on sounds exactly like Donald Trump. High prices, low wages, no freedoms. The California that Javier Becerra is promising sounds a whole lot like more of exactly the same that we've got right now. His policy failures are choices. It's a choice not to have any plan for education or any plan for the environment. Those are choices his corporate backers are paying him to make. They're unconscionable. We cannot have a governor who's been bought off by big oil. It's unconscionable. If you're happy with how things are going in California and how much everything costs, you're free to go vote for Javier Becerra.
Keep Chevron in Houston.
He's not, yes, Chevron is a Houston-based company, you guys, just so you know. He's not going to change things. The corporations funding him are banking on the fact that he's not going to change things. But California deserves better. California needs change. That's what I'm running to deliver. So many Californians Californians tell me that they don't believe government can do anything for them. They don't believe government can work. And there's only one candidate who can change that. The world has always looked to California for a glimpse of the future. Let's show them how great it can be. We can prove that single payer is possible and home ownership is achievable and that corporate monopoly power is not inevitable. We can close corporate tax loopholes to fund our schools and healthcare. We can make polluters pay instead of Californians having to pay at the pump. We can stand up to Trump and put ICE in jail. When you cast your ballot, it is not about me. It's about single payer. It's about climate progress. It's about housing. It's about taxing billionaires, which no other candidate has said they will do. We can prove that a California that works for working people is possible. That is what is on your ballot. But let me say this. I can't do it alone. I don't want to do it alone. I need all of you. Today, tomorrow, Tuesday, and every single day after Tuesday. Because a better California is only possible if we vote for it and make it happen. If we win, the corporations lose. So here comes the practical advice. Drop your ballot in the mail if you haven't already. Make a plan to vote. Text your friends, call your family, talk to your neighbors. No mailbox, I'm hearing from my pals. Tell your friends about the California you want to live in and tell them it starts with Tuesday. Thank you for being here. I'd be so honored to have your vote. Let's go win this.
So those were two excerpts from the speech that Tom Steyer gave this past Saturday, May the 30th, 2026, here in San Francisco, California. And I should just add something. I had told someone, I'm going to correct myself and also apologize. I said that I had heard on Substack Live yesterday, I did a Substack Live, and I said to someone that I had heard Tom Steyer say that he rejected data centers. Well, in that excerpt of that speech, obviously you heard him say that data centers must pay their own way. So that is not him explicitly saying he rejected the data centers. So I apologize for that and apologize to the person on Substack Live that I said this to. Obviously I didn't hear properly. So that's my mistake and I take full responsibility for that. But I want to also add that just because Tom Steyer said that data centers must pay their own way, that doesn't mean that he supports them. I mean, what I would really need to do is ask him directly, does he support them or does he not? You know, but again, I want to say this, as odious as data centers are, if you are here in California and that is the one issue that you care about, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, there are other issues that are as important and far more important than data centers. It doesn't mean that we should ignore data centers. They are horrible. I'm not a fan of them. I don't support them. I reject them 150%. I'm just saying that, my goodness me, there's so much more that's even more pressing than data centers in this state. Cost of freaking living, for one. Have you seen your energy bill in California lately? Have you seen your gas tank in California lately? How much you're paying at the pump? Have you seen the food prices in this state? And blueberries and how much they cost? Have you seen the food prices, period, in this state? And you're worried only about data centers? I'm sorry now. Listen to me. I get it that some people are one-issue voters, but my God, if you're a one-issue voter, I think you probably are doing very well financially in this state because you have the financial privilege, and maybe the white privilege, to just look at one bloody issue and make that the only thing you care about. I'm sorry, there's lots of things to care about in this state or in any state. Childcare, educate, I get it, some people don't have kids. Oh, you don't have kids. Listen, you don't have to have kids to care about childcare and care about education. care about schooling, care about the environment, care about healthcare, care about having single payer, for God's sakes. This guy, listen, I think he is capable of delivering a lot of these things, if not all of them. And again, it's not enough to say that he won't deliver on everything. It is much more than enough to say the following. You and I must get involved here in California and push Tom Steyer to deliver on these things. Or whomever it is that is governor. Preferably a Democrat, obviously a Democrat, no Republicans allowed. But my goodness me, and we've seen what Republicans have done to the state of California in the in the gubernatorial office. We saw what Arnold did. We saw what Ronald Reagan did, what Pete Wilson did, all these people, right? I'm saying, though, this guy has a plan to do something. And I think he's much more ambitious, and I understand that he's not inside politics. If you're not comfortable with voting for someone who is outside the politics, then don't vote for him. I'm just telling you that strategically, you should vote for him for the sake of a jungle primary. That's what I'm saying to you. That is what I am saying. That is it. You need to be strategic here. And Becerra's going to probably get in. And if that is enough for you, then fine. Then you don't give a damn about Tom Steyer. Fine. I'm not saying you have to love billionaires. I'm not saying that you're a bad person if you don't vote for one, or that you're a bad person if you do vote for one. What I am saying is strategy counts when you've got a jungle primary. And as I said before earlier in this episode, if this were a primary that was just a straightforward primary, then yeah, vote for who you really want, who you really like. But this here in California, when it comes to the governor's race, is not just some everyday, ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill, everyday, other day primary. This is a jungle primary, which means the top two vote getters in this state for governor will be the two that go into the midterms in November. And that means if you want two Democrats in there and you don't want any possibility of a Republican being in that race, I think it absolutely necessitates, thank you, easy for me to say, it absolutely necessitates that you vote for Tom Steyer. Because I think Javier Becerra is going to get there. I predicted it would be Becerra or Steyer. I predicted that there would either be one Democrat and one Republican, or two Democrats in the final two. We're going to find out tomorrow, one way or another. And by the way, I found out that I'm on C-SPAN. I found out that the C-SPAN cameras were there. And I only found that out just a few moments ago as I'm recording this, dear listener. And so C-SPAN cameras were there, and they literally caught me talking to Tom Steyer with my New York Knicks Jalen Brunson shirt on. And I block out the C-SPAN camera for a couple of moments. I actually should post this on Substack. Video of Tom Steyer and I. It's actually quite good. Man, see, you never know who's covering these things. You never know. And I mean, when you go to these rallies, you're consenting, and they don't say this to you often enough or at all, but you were literally consenting to being on camera. When you're at a political rally, you know, right, a campaign rally, you do know that you're subject to being put on television, unbeknownst to you. And look, there's no privacy anymore these days, is there? Well, there's obviously some privacy. But once you go out into the open public outdoors, there is no privacy. You got people sneak taking video of you or sneak taking photos of you, which is just dastardly. People sneaking around and taking photos of you without your knowledge. That's allowed, by the way, except in certain states where, as you know, for example, in Massachusetts several years ago, and I'm not veering too far off the topic, there was an upskirting law passed after there's these despicable men taking pictures of women walking up the stairs who were wearing dresses or skirts. So you know what they were trying to do, these men. And so they were taking photographs with their cell phones of that. I mean, I just think that's despicable and disgusting. So there was a law passed in Massachusetts, which is still in the books, I think, the upskirting law, the banning of taking photographs of a woman without her knowledge walking up and down the stairs. You know, I mean, upskirting. That's what that is called, and the ban on that. So anyway, all of that is to say that once you're out in public, you're fair game for these cameras. You can't walk around anywhere in the United States or anywhere in the United Kingdom or anywhere without being videotaped, photographed. I mean, the surveillance state has been here for a long ass time. And it's becoming even more pervasive, as we know, as you know. So anyway, yeah, I managed to find my way. I didn't even know. I managed to, I mean, hey, the camera's going to be on you. If you're talking to Tom Steyer, who is a governor candidate for governor here, you're going to have the cameras in front of you. I mean, oh dear, it was pretty funny to see. You know, I blocked out half the camera. Oh God, it was funny. Anyway, you'll see that if you watch C-SPAN. In fact, I'm going to put the video of me talking with Tom Steyer. It's pretty bloody good. Now listen, I told you I am a supporter of his. I voted for him, and the camera C-SPAN captures all of that conversation. So anyway, enough of me shamelessly and self-indulging you here. My shameless self-indulgence continues. Narcissism Incorporated. No, I mean, you're so vain. You probably think the song is about you, don't you? Shout out Carly Simon, who, by the way, wrote that song about Warren Beatty. That is, I think that's been readily admitted by Carly Simon, who doesn't do a whole lot of interviews these days, or I think ever. And I think a few short years ago, she did come out and say that, yeah, it was Warren Beatty who that song she wrote, You're So Vain, is about. And man, I wonder how Carly Simon's doing these days. I haven't heard a lot from her. Man, in the 70s and 80s, she was the shit. And she really was. Carly Simon was pretty goddamn popular back then. And was pretty, and I really appreciate her music. And still appreciate her music. She is here with us. I just have not heard hide nor hair from her over the last goodness knows how many years. But I do hope that you are well, Carly Simon, in case you might, in the off chance, have stumbled upon the Politicrat and happen to be listening to this. Hope you are well wherever you might be. But that is it for this edition of the Politicrat, actually. I'll stop it right there. It's been 2 hours plus, I think, at this moment. And so I'm going to stop it right here. Please do become a subscriber to my Substack. That's popcornreel.substack.com. It would truly be appreciated. And you cannot imagine how much I appreciate your support. And you cannot imagine how much I value your presence and your participation. And always, you are always welcome to be a part of the Substack lives that I do, and of course the entries that I post, and of course the stories that I write and the articles I write. I will get back to doing some writing again in the next day or two, especially as it regards this California governor's race. I mean, it may be a little bit late as far as this particular thing is concerned, but I don't believe it's ever too late in a lot of situations in this world that we live in. So I just wanted to keep your eyes peeled for that. Please do. Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about this week with these 6 primaries that are going on tomorrow, including here in California, as I have run through that already today. And as you know, there's a lot going on in general in this month of June. We talked about Pride Month this month, of course, which began today. And of course, you also know that there's a lot of sporting events going on as well in the month of June, including the NBA Finals, which I'll get to later on this week. I'll be talking a little bit about that. I'll get to that. And then, of course, also the World Cup, which starts, I think, next week. The World Cup begins, which will be going on for 5 weeks. Then you've got the French Open final, which I think is happening this weekend for the men and the women. A lot of people have been knocked out of that tournament. All these big names have gone. Coco Gauff is gone. Novak Djokovic is gone. Yannick Sinner is gone. Iga Swiatek is gone. I mean, there's a million people who've been bounced out of this tournament. There's no one of any import left. Carlos Alcaraz is not in the tournament. He has a wrist injury. He's going to also miss Wimbledon, which begins this month. month as well, at the end of the month of June. I mean, you've got a million things going on in sports. If you're a sports fan, you've got the Stanley Cup final that begins tomorrow. NBA Finals begins Wednesday with my beloved New York Knicks in the mix against the San Antonio Spurs. Again, I'll get to that conversation later in the week. And there's so many other, if you're a sports junkie like I am, you're going to be loving June because there's so many things going on in June, including the golf. If you are a Scottish, not Scottish, I think it's the US Open Golfing Championship. I think if that hasn't gone already, I think that's happening this month. And then, of course, you've got the racing, the Belmont Stakes, I think is this weekend in the racing, the Triple Crown. I mean, there's just so much sports going on, and not to mention the WNBA and, of course, the major leagues of baseball here in the United States. So you've got a million and one things to choose from if you're a sports nut like I am. So anyway, that's all of it on this edition of The Politicrat. Thank you very much indeed for joining. Again, please subscribe, become a paid subscriber. Please, if you like the content here, if you like the content, if you like the content here on the Politicrat podcast, or the content, I should say, also on Substack, please become a paid subscriber to my Substack, popcornreel.substack.com. It would be truly appreciated. It really would. And I do hope that you oblige that. And if you can't do that, then please make sure that you become a subscriber for free, and you're more than welcome. Paid subscribers do, however, get the benefit of becoming, of getting gifts, of getting books, and getting, in giveaways, books and movies and music and all kinds of things. So if you're a paid subscriber, you also get content that I send out that you will not get if you are a free subscriber. So please, please, please keep that in mind. Please remember to vote, folks. Have a plan to vote. Make a plan to vote in advance. Make an advance plan to vote, folks, and discuss it with your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your family, people who need to get out there and be aware of what's going on with the voting and be aware of the strategy and the plan. Please do that. And if you're here in California, please get out and vote today. This is the last day of early voting. Tomorrow, Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026, is election day in 6 states, including here in California. Please make sure you fill out your entire ballot. Do not leave anything blank, for God's sakes. And please make sure you vote Tom Steyer here in California for governor, to try to make sure that you get 2 Democrats going to the final 2, as opposed to 1 Democrat and 1 Republican. Again, I said to you before, if you're uncomfortable with voting for Tom Steyer, then by all means, please vote for Javier Becerra. Both of them are good candidates. I just think Tom Steyer is a little bit better. That is my thing. I am fully transparent here. You know I've voted for Tom Steyer. I've told you that many times. I wore a t-shirt of his, for God's sakes, yesterday on Substack, doing the Substack Live that I did. So I'm not running away from transparency at all. And look, I'll tell you this, he was giving away the t-shirts, and as a billionaire, he should, right? He was giving away lots of hats and t-shirts for free. So, listen, I'm not a billionaire, but I definitely give away things to paid subscribers on a routine basis, okay? So please become a paid subscriber. It really is worth your while. Please check your voter registration, and please check it frequently. And please send messages on social media to your followers telling them to check their voter registration and to vote and to register people to vote and get out to vote and participate. Okay, please help someone's campaign. All right, volunteer for somebody. Do something that engages you in this process, because this is about all of us, including you. Make sure that you also follow your local politicians and demand things of them as well. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.
That the cavalry is not coming for us, that it is us. I am putting every small, big, large piece of political capital that I have and aiming for and organizing to get a governor elected that has it in his heart and in his spirit to make California a place where we can breathe and live with joy and beloved community. Justice for all of us. Vote for Tom why I decided to endorse and work on this campaign as a sitting member of Congress. And I said it before, it's because the healers are backing this campaign. Everyone in this crowd, there will come a day where you're going to need someone who lifts you up and your family in your great time of need. And you know what we call them? We call them nurses. And they deserve everything. So with that, Nurse Michelle is going to come and give us some of that fire that only our healers can give. Michelle.